Okay, I actually have one question for these guys that I dreamt up when you guys were having your table exercise, and that is, since COVID, we have been relying a lot on technology, and there are a lot of boards that have chosen to have some meetings virtually instead of in person. I'm on some boards where half the meetings are, they're trying to have virtual and all that. How do you do culture? How do you do board culture if you're virtual?
It's hard. It's really difficult. There's just no substitute for this. You can't do this on a screen. You can't have difficult conversations over Zoom. You can. Obviously, we do. I'm just saying they're probably not nearly as effective as they could be. It's difficult to show empathy. It's difficult to show emotions and have whoever your recipient is, really feel that over Zoom. So I really think we've lost a lot. I think every board that I'm on, we still have Zoom committee meetings between board meetings, but the board meets in person for every meeting. Unless there's, these are nonprofit boards or cost is an issue where, they're saving money. But all of my corporate boards, we're back to full meeting 100% in person.
Yeah, I would echo what Jarvis said, and I would just ask you to reflect on your own time when you have been doing a Zoom call, and whether or not you took time out to do email, or to if you got a little putter thing in your office there, you putted a couple balls, or whatever you did that sort of distracted you while something was going on the screen, and you have your answer as to whether or not how effective it is. So it was okay when we had to do it. It's not so okay when you don't have to do it. I think of all of mine, we have one virtual meeting in one of my boards. Everything else, unless there's a problem, everything else is face to face. And so again, so my personal experience. So I joined the Dow board in August of 2020, so it was right in the middle of the pandemic. And I had met Jim and the lead director, and we had all our conversations just before the pandemic. Actually, as Houston was shutting down, he was here, and we talked and all that. And so we decided I was going to join the board, but I joined in August. So I went sort of through the whole pandemic period without actually meeting anybody except a couple of people face to face on the board. And so it was really, really hard to get a sense of and I'm a kinesthetic person. I like sort of seeing and being around people, feeling them. So it was just hard for me to get a sense of the pulse of the board. Now that, of course, now that we're meeting face to face, the flights on the airplanes are one thing where you get to know people, who goes and has drinks after the dinner and hanging out in there. So you just kind of find out stuff by doing things where you see in people doing stuff, and you can kind of begin to understand the culture and understand the vibe and how things are going. And so there's just no substitute. Just to reinforce what Jarvis said, there's no substitute for being around each other and seeing kind of what's happening. There's just no substitute for it.
You also bring up a really good point, and that is the offline time that you get to spend around an in-person board meeting, whether it's the dinners, whether it's lunches, meeting with the executives. When you get to know people in a different setting and you're more familiar with people, you are much more apt to have a difficult conversation because you know that there's trust, there's understanding of intent, nobody is defensive. You've chatted about where you golfed, where you went on vacation, what your grandkids are like, all that. And once you've established that kind of relationship, board culture is much more easier to mold, where you have a balance between collegiality and challenge, and nobody takes anything personally, but you're there because you're doing it for the right reasons. Building that trust in that offline time is actually really important for those conversations. And I don't care if you sign on to Zoom early. Everyone wants to sign on early so we can trash talk sports. That doesn't do it. It doesn't replace it, right? So there's something, and I would just I think you're right. I think committee meetings in between, catch-ups, things like that, it makes no sense to fly across the country for a 1-hour meeting like that. But for board meetings, I would agree.
Absolutely.
I would agree.